Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you're having an awesome day. Today I want to talk about a question I often get. Said, Victor, how do you prospect using social media, right? How do you prospect using social media? Now, that's always an interesting question because there's two big ways of doing it, right? When it comes to prospecting, we can either do outbound or inbound. For those of you who don't know what I mean by that, outbound means I am reaching out, obviously. Inbound means that they're finding me and they're reaching out to me. Now, two different strategies. I like to use the 1-2 punch. I'm often asked, which one do you rely on more? I rely a lot on inbound media, right? In other words, inbound social selling. And so today I want to talk about what I do and then what I do in terms of outbound, right? So I'm going to give you a little bit of both. The 1-2 punch, right? So when it comes to social media, there's so many different channels out there, right? There's so many ways of connecting with people that the first question we often have to ask ourselves is, which platform is right for me? So let's begin with that conversation right there. What platform is right for you? As you're listening to me right now, ask yourself, based on what you're selling, where do your customers hang out? We start right there. Where do your customers hang out? And for me, I do a lot of sales consulting. Most people just see my sales training side, but what they don't realize is I do a lot of sales consulting. I go and help companies build their sales team, put together a strategic plan, some go-to market plan, even do their own internal sales training and figure out, how can I optimize their sales force, right? How can I make them better? In other words, how can I improve their performance? That's what I do. Aside from just sales training is, how do I structure your organization to go to market? How do we segment markets? How do we find verticals? How do we find the ideal customer personas? What do we show them? When do we show them? Blah, 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 so forth and so on. You get the idea. So I asked myself, who would buy my services? That's a good question to ask yourself. Who would buy my services? And where do they hang out? Right? And for me, I know for a fact that there's at least 2 or 3 social media channels where people can find me and would buy from me. And so what I am currently using are 3 channels. And I chose 3 because, to be honest, I can't keep up with 20 different channels. I'm just not that talented, right? And for me, my number one channel where my folks hang out, people who would hire me, right, for sales consulting is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like the biggest business Rolodex out there. And if you don't know what a Rolodex is, well, you're new school, not old school. But anyway, it's the biggest business directory out there. And these people on LinkedIn are the types of people who would buy from me. And I know that. Again, my data has shown, based on my bookings over the last 3, 4, 5 years, people who've hired me, I know that they come from LinkedIn. That's big for me, right? Now, I also use YouTube. Everybody wants to go to YouTube when they have a question, right? So they go to YouTube. So that's another channel that I use. You're listening to me through a podcast. That's another channel I use because I know busy people listen to podcasts, especially when they're in traffic, right? So you're listening to this podcast and hopefully down the road you'll say, you know what, maybe we'll get Victor to come in. And this has happened many times that listeners of my podcast have recommended me to their bosses, and guess what? Boom, I'm in there, training with them, consulting, whatever it may be. So those are just 3 channels that I use. And people always say, well, what about the other channels, Victor? What about the other channels? Well, again, you could use them. I'm just giving you my top 3, LinkedIn, YouTube, and podcasting, right? And most people ask me, Victor, why don't you use like Facebook? I do. I have a Facebook page. But again, based on my data, and by the way, I keep my Facebook page. If you go to facebook.com/ my page name is The Victor Antonio, depending on how you want to say it. And you'll see my page there, and I keep it updated. So whatever I post on one site or one channel, I'll post there. So I keep it updated, but my expectations for what I can get from Facebook is very low. People say, well, Victor, what about Snapchat, Instagram, right? All these, again, great channels, but for my product, I'm not seeing the hit, right? I'm not seeing the take rate. I'm not seeing the type of conversion I am with LinkedIn or YouTube or my podcast. Nobody till this day has come up to me and says, Victor, I found you on Twitter, and that's why we decided to contact you. Victor, I found you on Snapchat, or I found you on Instagram. No one has said that to me. Now, again, I could be wrong here, so please, everything I tell you is based on my business model and what I'm seeing. Now, do I post to Instagram? Yes, I do. Do I post to Twitter? Yes, I do. Because again, maybe those will be channels that over the next few months, year, whatever, may develop into a lead channel for me. So I don't ignore them. I just don't give them the priority or the attention that I think they warrant. So again, LinkedIn, YouTube, and again, podcasts for me are what drives my business. My question to you is, what are your channels? What channels do you use to drive business? So again, so now we know, you figure out who you're selling to, where do your buyers hang out, and then figure out what your channel mix is, right? And again, I use all the different channels, whether it's Twitter, whether it's, again, Instagram, or some of the other ones. But my three big ones are what I've mentioned already. So, but I still use a mix of all of them, try to hit them all. But again, what are your top three? What are your top three channels? That's what I would do. Step one, what are your top three channels? And then next step is, what type of content are you creating for those channels? What type of content are you creating for those channels? And again, I'm talking about inbound and getting people to notice you, getting people to see who you are, right? But now let's kind of shift a little bit. I've been talking about, putting stuff on social media and how do you get people to contact you, right? How do you get people to notice you? How do you grab their attention? How do you get them to contact you, right? That is how I work today. But I also, once in a while, when I want to talk to somebody, have to now do an outbound. In other words, I have to reach out. And as you know, cold calling is tougher than it ever was, right? Now, people always say, Victor, is cold calling dead? Of course it's not dead. Cold calling will always be in style, but it's part of a bigger mix. It's part of your social media mix. I'm reading a great book right now. When I'm done with it, I think I'll do a review on it, but it's called Combo Prospecting by Tony Hughes. Combo Prospecting by Tony Hughes. And I like the way he says, his combo basically means, I think I'm going to start using that phrase, and it's his phrase. And he calls combo prospecting is when you use social media, you use the phone to drive, and if you got to leave voicemails, great. Use emails, and maybe even have to send some texting, right? Do some texting. That's the combination. But everybody listening to this podcast will have their own mix of, what to emphasize or de-emphasize. But what I like about the book, and I've already believed this, which is why I'm in line with what Tony Hughes is saying in his book, Combo Prospecting, is that it's not just one channel, right? This is not, one channel to actually contact people or one way of doing it. It's several different ways. See, that's what's changed in selling in terms of prospecting and reaching out. If you're just cold calling, listen carefully, if you're just plain old cold calling, the numbers are not in your favor. Now, here's what I mean by that. One study has it done. Again, there's so many studies on, when I look at data, I'm like, I try to kind of figure out what's reasonable, what's not reasonable. One study showed that on average, you have to make 7 to 8 calls just to get, to contact someone. But then another study showed something interesting, that if you remove the gatekeeper as a contact point, like the person you contacted when you cold called, that number is actually more like 18 attempts. 18 attempts. So in other words, there are different things you can do to reach out. And what I'm saying is that you have to have a combination effect when you're prospecting. Use social media, but also engage people online. Talk to people online. Write articles online. produce content. If you're a salesperson, I know what you're saying, Victor, I don't have time to write articles. You can write short articles. But if you don't like writing articles, maybe you can engage people on LinkedIn. Maybe you can monitor conversations on people you want to connect with. If you're using, LinkedIn and you're using their sales navigator, maybe you can actually just maybe select 10 to 25 people that you want to track. And those are the conversations you track. And again, if there are press releases surrounding these companies, again, find ways to engage on social media. This topic is so big that I can talk about this for the next 2 to 3 hours and we still wouldn't be done. But I want to start thinking about right now is, bottom line, what are you selling? Who are you selling to? Where are they hanging out? And what is your top 3, your social media mix? What are your top 3 channels for reaching the right people? That's all I want you to think about right now. Get that. Lock that in. Where do they hang out? What 3 channels can I use to access people, whether I want to grab their attention or I want to actually connect with them? How would I do it? And what 3 channels would I use to do that? Well, that's it for the Sales Influence Podcast. I went a little long. Sorry about that. Don't forget to leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Let me know what you think. I'd greatly appreciate it. By the way, I get great feedback from you guys, especially on YouTube. You guys are killing me. If I didn't get to your email, I'm getting so many. I'm doing my best to keep up. Anyway, also check out my online sales training platform, the Sales Mastery Academy. You can find it at salesmasteryacademy.us. Over 25 courses, 300 videos, 12 books, and again, every month I'm adding a new course. So if you're serious about increasing your sales ability, go to salesmasteryacademy.us. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, let's wait for the drop. Selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care. Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.